What do a controversial king, a young mistress, and a Russian billionaire have in common? They're all part of the fascinating Leopolda, a mansion where history has played out some of its most intriguing dramas, from royal love affairs to near billion-dollar deals that fizzled. Villa Leopolda has seen it all. But what is it about this particular estate that has captivated the world's wealthiest and most powerful individuals? Before we begin, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. A royal affair. Picture this, a young girl of just 16 living in the bustling streets of Paris. Her name? Blanche Zélia Joséphine de Lacroix, but the world would soon know her as Caroline Lacroix. Now imagine a king, Leopold II of Belgium, a man in his 60s, wealthy beyond imagination but lonely at the core. Their worlds were about to collide in a way that would shake the very foundations of the Belgian monarchy. Caroline wasn't born into luxury. Far from it, she was the 13th child of a family struggling to make ends meet in Bucharest, Romania. By her mid-teens, she had become the mistress of a former French army officer, Antoine Emmanuel Durieux. Durieux had a knack for arranging company for other wealthy men, a role that Caroline filled to support themselves. It was through these encounters that she caught the eye of King Leopold II. Now let's talk about that first meeting. A messenger from the king arranged it, and Caroline was whisked away to a secluded room where she met Leopold and his attendants. Imagine the tension, the anticipation, and then a twist. Caroline, perhaps flustered, referred to him as His Majesty Oscar, the King of Sweden, but Leopold was amused, not offended. He saw something in her, a spark, a vivacity that he found irresistible. So what did Leopold do? He invited her on a trip to Austria. Just like that, Caroline's life turned into a whirlwind of royal escapades. She was no longer a girl struggling on the streets, she was now the talk of Belgium, her name whispered in high society and splashed across newspapers. A king's gift for a mistress. A few years go by, and Leopold, a man already steeped in controversy for his rule over the Congo Free State, decides to build a mansion. But not just any mansion. We're talking about a sprawling estate that would make even the richest of the rich blush. And guess what? It wasn't even for him. That's right, this monumental villa was a gift for his mistress, Blanche Zélia Joséphine de Lacroix, better known as Caroline Lacroix. First, let's talk about size. When we say Villa Leopolda is massive, we're not kidding. The villa is sprawled across a jaw-dropping 18 acres of land in the Villa Franche-sur-Mer on the French Riviera. To put that into perspective, that's about 14 football fields. It's not just a mansion, it's practically a small village. The villa is surrounded by lush gardens, terraced landscapes, and even has its own private beach. Yes, a private beach. The villa's design is the brainchild of American architect Ogden Codman Jr., who was given the Herculean task of transforming a series of unrelated buildings into a cohesive masterpiece. Codman was no stranger to grandeur. He was known for his Neo-Palladian vision, which is a fancy way of saying he was inspired by the classical architecture of ancient Roman Greece. The villa's design is so intricate that even the Duke and Duchess of Windsor were unable to make changes to it. Codman had a strict list of protective clauses that prevented any alterations to his vision. But if you think the exterior is impressive, wait until you hear about the interior. The villa was designed during the Belle Époque, a period known for its artistic and cultural refinement. This was a time when art wasn't just something you hung up on a wall, it was a way of life. Every room in the villa is a testament to this philosophy. From intricately designed ceilings to lavish furnishings, the attention to detail is nothing short of extraordinary. The villa is so artistically significant that it's listed in the General Inventory of Architectural Heritage of the Région Provence-Alpes-Côte d'Azur. That's like winning an Oscar in the architectural world. But let's not forget about the gardens. Oh, the gardens. They're not just patches of green. They're carefully curated landscapes that would make even the most seasoned horticulturists green with envy. The gardens are filled with rare and exotic plants, perfectly manicured lawns, and even fountains that look like they've been plucked straight out of a fairy tale. So how much did all this opulence cost? Well, that's the million-dollar, or should I say billion-dollar question. The exact figures are shrouded in mystery, but considering that Russian billionaire Mikhail Prokhorov once offered a staggering 370 million euros for it, it's safe to say that the villa is worth an unimaginable amount of money. And that's not even including the furniture, which was priced at an additional 19.5 million euros. So, King Leopold II gifts this jaw-dropping villa to his mistress. You'd think that's where the story ends, right? A happily ever after for the mistress in her opulent abode. Not quite. The saga continues. You see, the relationship between King Leopold II and Caroline was far from a simple love affair. Leopold II had a string of mistresses throughout his life. However, since Leopold II was already married to Mary Henriette of Austria, with whom he had 4 children, his relationship with Caroline caused quite a stir in Belgium. In yet another surprising turn of events, Leopold II and Caroline Lacroix secretly married in a religious ceremony just days before his death. Although the marriage was not legally recognized, they had 2 sons together, Lucien and Philippe, who were later given the last name Durieux to avoid scandal. The children were not officially recognized as royal heirs, but were well taken care of financially. After King Leopold II's death, Caroline Lacroix found herself in a whirlwind of legal and emotional turmoil. Leopold had foreseen the precarious position Caroline would be in without him, so he made arrangements to secure her future. He left her a staggering 10% of his estate, along with a portfolio of properties. But don't think for a second that this was the end of Caroline's challenges. Oh no, the drama was just getting started. Caroline found herself embroiled in legal battles with Leopold's daughters from his previous marriage. They contested the will, and the fight over the inheritance became a public spectacle. The Belgian society was already divided over Caroline's relationship with the king, and this legal wrangling only added fuel to the fire. And just when you thought Caroline's life couldn't get any more complicated, she married her former lover, Antoine Durieux, within a year of Leopold's death. Antoine even adopted her children, Lucien and Philippe, giving them his last name. But the marriage was short-lived, and Caroline found herself back in the dating pool. She had several other relationships, but never walked down the aisle again. The villa's transformation. As for the villa, the mistress for whom it was originally built was evicted from the property. Yes, kicked out. The villa then fell into the hands of King Leopold II's nephew, King Albert I. Now, Albert was not just a king in title, he was a soldier king who led his troops from the front during World War I. Belgium was a battleground during the war, and Albert I was determined to defend his nation. It was during this period that Villa Leopolda served a purpose far removed from its original intent. It became a military hospital. Imagine the grand halls, once filled with the laughter of courtesans and the melodies of orchestras, now echoing with the cries and moans of wounded soldiers. The opulent rooms, which had witnessed royal affairs and grand parties, were now filled with hospital beds. Nurses scurried where once elegantly dressed men and women had waltzed. The air, which had been fragrant with the scent of exotic perfumes, now smelled of antiseptics and medicines. Despite these changes, the essence of the villa remained. The architecture, the art on the walls, and even the view of the sea from its windows served as a reminder of a different time, a different world. For the wounded soldiers, it was a glimpse of the beauty and grandeur that life could offer, a stark contrast to the ugliness and brutality of war. In 1919, the villa was acquired by Teresa Vitali, Comtesse de Bichon. She wasn't just content with owning a villa, she wanted to make it her own, so she commissioned modifications to the property. But the real game changer was American architect Ogden Codman Jr., who purchased the estate in 1929. Codman was no ordinary architect, he was a man with a vision. He considered the villa his architectural magnum opus and began a transformation that would leave everyone stunned. Financial difficulties did force him to rent it out, but not before he gave the estate its current neo-Palladian appearance. Codman was so protective of his design that he even refused to lease it out to the Duke and Duchess of Windsor because they wanted to make changes. Fast forward to 1948, Caroline died, leaving behind a story so tumultuous it could rival any soap opera. She penned her memoirs, capturing the essence of her rollercoaster life, aptly titled A Commoner Married a King. As for her villa, in the 1950s it was sold to Isaac Walton Killam, a Canadian industrialist. After his death, his wife inherited the villa. But the story doesn't end there. Enter Agnellis, the power couple of Fiat fame. They acquired the villa and later sold it to Canadian philanthropist Dorothy J. Killam in 1963. She lived there until her death in 1965. In 1987, the villa became the property of Lebanese-born Brazilian banker Edmond Safra and his wife Lily. They didn't just live in the villa, they turned it into the epitome of luxury. Tulips were airlifted from Holland for their parties, and the food was prepared by famed chef Roger Verger. They even had performances by Brazilian bandleader Sergio Mendes and pianist David Wood. And just when you thought the villa had seen it all, enter Russian billionaire Mikhail Prokhorov. He attempted to buy the villa for a staggering 370 million euros in 2008, but backed out due to the financial crisis. This led to a lawsuit with Lily Safra over the 39 million euros deposit he had paid. A French court ruled against Prokhorov, but Safra announced that she would donate his deposit to various global charities. The villa, it seems, is not just a piece of property, it's a character in its own right, with a story that keeps on giving. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and sharing so we can keep bringing more content like this. See you next time.